how then do we stamp the flow of corruption? How do we stanch the flow of corruption in the country, right? Do we go that way when the citizenry, they get really upset and they take to the streets? Because this has been happening. We saw this happening in South Korea. This has taken up also in Romania as well. So is the world also frustrated by the government? Because also in Nigeria, we had a protest on Monday regarding the economy of Nigeria as well. People are out in the streets, protesting as well. Let's hear from you, Dr. Apollos.
You see, the Kenyan society is a different society. We appear to condone corruption. We are not serious enough because I think a society has the corrupt people it deserves. Mm-hmm. Given the chance, a lot of people would be corrupt because they have been admiring the corrupt people, yes, just like they have been admiring the drug barons. But you see, these people from Bucharest, you can see it is winter now in Europe, mm-hmm, but you can see they are holding guard at night with that code because they are so determined. I wish there would come a time in Kenya where we shall take corruption seriously, mm-hmm, because we tend to deal with the small offenses, very petty offenses. But the mega offenses are not dealt with because we admire these mega thieves, these white-collar crimes. So I think Kenyans do not have enough civic education for us to be good enough to hold our leaders to account. Mm-hmm. So I am not seeing a time where all people in Nairobi will come out to Uhuru Park and stay overnight because we have corrupt leaders in the Golden Bag, agro-leasing, all this chicken gate. It will be hard. We still have.
But do we have that space? Because we can see also the civil society were holding their own summit. They were saying they're frustrated. They feel the government is also clamping down on them with so many bills that we have the PBO Act as well right now that domicile there is some of very contentious clauses as well.
I think the commitment of our government is also skewed because some of these civil society organizations had gone to lobby against corruption. Mm-hmm. But you see the way they were hard hit because the government does not want them to talk about corruption. Mm-hmm. Which means there is something we are hiding as a society, as the leadership of this country. Mm-hmm. Both sides.
Right. Let's hear from Dr. Mumo.
This movement is this province in comparative politics. We call it contentious politics. Mm-hmm. And people bring claims upon authorities about things they are dissatisfied with. It is a good thing. It is part of the democratic process. But also how it is done is very important. Mm-hmm. You have seen the Egyptians in Tahrir over and over, and it sort of became a mess. It needs to be organized. Last year, I presented a paper at Laikipia University called Of Pigs, Rats, and Donkeys. Mm-hmm. And that has been one of the most interesting repertoires of contentious politics in Kenya since the 2010 constitution. We had the Ondoa Panya, then we had the M-Pigs, and then we had the donkeys in town. And I interviewed all these people, those of Wamagata and those other boys and all this. All they need to do is do it right. You saw the protests in Bucharest. In '89, it was more bloody. It was a problem because Nicolae Ceausescu and his wife were executed just around that time. And some of these things is that if you do it in a way that it can spark violence, mm-hmm, and other things, then it loses meaning. And therefore, if people are protesting, let them be very organized, very civil, and let them have peace marshals, people who make sure that the whole place is not infiltrated by goons, thieves, and other people who come to break the law. Mm-hmm. And that makes it a very good thing. So contentious politics is not new. It will always be there. You saw those who protested Trump's presidency, others who protested Brexit, mm-hmm, but they were all trying to be very civilized around it. Sometimes it's what we call state capture. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you find civil society organizations being very insincere. They are pocketing money from the same people they pretend to be fighting. And they start saying they're being stifled by the law and so on. And it becomes, it's called state capture or recooptation. So these are important things, and we are building a democracy. If someone goes out there to protest, and these days people say anything,
Thank you.
but let them say the right things,
Right,
and
thank
let them do it right.
Right, Prof,
Yeah.
you want to wind up on that, still on Romania and the corruption?
The social good does not come out easily. It comes because of sacrifice of many people and with the voice of many people. I think we are seeing in South Korea what's happening. I think we are seeing the protest against Trump and what Trump is attempting to do around the world. I think it is impressive to watch the former communist countries, totalitarian countries, come out and protest the way they are doing in Romania. This thing we cannot take lightly here in our country.
Yes.
We cannot expect the civil groups to come and represent our interests. People must do it in two ways. One is vote. Every single person, every single Kenyan is supposed to take a vote and express the opinion. Every single person in Kenya must talk about this thing publicly. Reject the people you elect that you think cannot perform the job or represent the value and interest of this country. And corruption, it at the very fabric of our country. It is unacceptable. We must not tolerate it in our country.
Right, thank you. All right, we cross over now to USA, where White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer says he is confident that the Trump administration will prevail as U.S. appeal court considers the legality of President Donald Trump's immigration order. Trump cast his travel ban on people from 7 Muslim-majority countries as a key element of national security. The 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco is to hear arguments later in the day from Justice Department lawyers and opposing attorneys for the states of Washington and Minnesota about whether to restore the ban. Trump's January the 27th executive order barred entry for citizens from Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen for 90 days and imposed a 120-day hold on all refugees. I know Professor Naomi Damba has been in the U.S. and, of course, this travel ban, first of all, let's just begin with it. We can see Obama is really enjoying himself. But looking at the track record of the Obamas, squeaky clean, clean as a whistle. They've walked through, the 2 terms without any scandal. Here we have Melania Trump, allegations and, of course, lawsuits as well, defamation. But let's begin, first of all, the travel ban.
Dubai, I think the...
First, my story, my question is, are you in any way affected? Because I know you have a dual citizenship.
Yes, I have a dual citizen, and if Trump's trying to challenge that, I will fight him in the Supreme Court. I have the right to vote in 2 countries, and I have the right to exercise my democratic right in both countries. The issue is Trump must understand the normal procedure that all presidents have followed since George Washington to now. And that is, if he wants to make such a serious policy, then he needs to go through the congressional process. That issues need to be debated, and the Congress need to sign off on him on that issue before he declares 7 countries non-granted permission to travel to the United States. Mm-hmm. This includes scholars who are traveling back and forth. This includes medical people that are very critical for the international community. This includes people who already have green card that have residents in both countries. You cannot all of a sudden come up one day and say you cannot come in. Mm-hmm. And therefore the court system is doing what their constitutional duty is to block him from carrying on with that policy.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about the executive orders so far that within his, not even the 100 days that he's been in office, he's effectively, trying to put them in place?
He's trying to behave like an imperial president. Americans will never accept imperial president. America left imperial rule in Europe, and a government that is based on fairness, is based on balance, and has three clear responsibility by the Constitution given to three divisions:
Right.
the judiciary, legislative, and the executive.
Right.
And one cannot step on the other.
Thank you. As we give also our closing statements as well, Dr. Mumo.
There's what Professor is alluding to in the context of the standard normal, which is the separation of powers and the doctrine of checks and balances. But at the same time, you have to look at ideology. Republican governments tend to be hawkish. They tend to be very much, hoarding things around state and state power and so on, and big government and so on. Trump is trying to project that kind of air, but of course, there's so far he can go with executive orders or decrees, vis-a-vis going through the normal legislation. So he's trying to exhaust much of what he can to do that, to ensure that he just doesn't end up as a one-term president in the end. So he's trying to deliver some of the things he promised his people. But there's one thing I'm realizing here, and it's a cross-cutting thing. The US is a melting pot also of a lot of problems. You see all these things we are agonizing about, drugs and so on. It is the greatest consumer of these drugs that come from Latin America. All these weapons, illicit weapons that end up in Latin America, most of them come from the US. And a lot of problems associated with it. So that's right. They're trying to look inwards and clean their house and so on. Trump is trying to do a bit of that, but there's just so far he can go, because there's always because this is what we call a consolidated democracy, and in a consolidated democracy you have very functional institutions that cannot allow an imperial presidency like Prof is saying. So I think it will balance out, but let's see how far he takes his act.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Dr. Apollos.
Trump is a fascist popularist. He's an autocratic businessman. So he wants to be very, very popular, and he wants to catch the attention of CNN. He does not listen to advice from CIA, and that's why he is trying to make executive orders without consulting.
Why do you think he wants to catch the attention of CNN?
Because he's a fascist popularist like Napoleon and Hitler. He just wants popularity. So if I were to advise the world, these seven countries who have been banned to go to the US, why are you going to the US? Why can't you just stay put in Middle East and forget about the US? What is so important? Why does Trump think that America is so important that other people in the other world cannot do without America? So that he puts a ban for 7 countries without regard to who are those people being banned. So that, he is being too proud. And I don't think the world should allow Trump to lord over everybody.